Hello everybody. So my name is James Graham and I am the creator of the Microsoft Defender Masterclass series of events for our Microsoft partners. In this video I'm going to take you through the lab that was part of the Microsoft Defender Masterclass 2 that took place on the 17th of March. So essentially this lab is creating a Power Virtual Agent and integrating that Power Virtual Agent with Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. It can take up to about 2 hours, so I may split this video into multiple parts, but I'll just see how I get on. But essentially I'm just going to take you through creating this Power Virtual Agent to integrate with essentially free customer tenants, and I'll take you through it step by step. To access this lab and the contents, you can get that on the repo. So aka.ms/Defender Masterclass -repo. That link is in the video description, and on here you can get access to all recordings, material from past events and get notified of upcoming events, sign up for the skills challenge or any that are running. So yeah, this is essentially where you get access to all of the content, and this lab document is here. So multi-tenant Teams bot, Microsoft Defender Integration Lab. So you can access this document from here. There's also a PDF version of it as well. So essentially in this video I'm going to run through this lab here. But before I do that, in terms of setting the scene, I've just got this whiteboard here in terms of what we're going to be achieving. So essentially we're going to be acting as this security partner, and as a security partner we have our own Azure Active Directory tenant. And what we're going to do is we're going to create an app registration that essentially this app registration will be our interface to leverage the Defender for Endpoint APIs. We're going to create some role permissions or some scope for this app registration, which will give us the ability to read alerts and also read a threat and vulnerability management score as well. So we'll define those. And then essentially this app then will have permissions to these resources in these free customer Azure Active Directory tenants. And we're going to almost use a sort of a Teams Power Virtual Agent bot to wrap around this app registration to create a nice way for a user to interact with it in Teams chat. So essentially this Teams bot will then call this app, call the API service to pull information from these tenants and display it back within the Teams chat. So hopefully that's clear. One thing of note, and it is in the documentation, but if you're doing this with live customers, then you do need to authorize these permissions, the app registration, the app permissions against these customer tenants using a global admin account. So yeah, make sure you've got the customer approval and the customer to do that for you. Otherwise you'll get issues when you're trying to generate auth tokens against the tenants, and your flows may fail. But anyway, we'll cover that when I go through the steps. So yeah, just going to pause the video here and I'll come back and I'll start to log into the partner tenant and kick off the app registration process. Okay, so the first step is to log into our partner tenant. So I've already logged in here using this account. I think one thing to note, you need to make sure you have the right licenses for the account that we'll be creating the Power Virtual Agent, and for that let me just show you that in a separate window. So this user, for instance, requires a license that will enable Teams. So in this instance, I've got Office 365 E5, but other licenses will work, such as M365 E3 or Office 365 E3 licenses will work for Teams. And also we need the Power Automate Free license and also the Power Virtual Agents license as well. In this instance, we've got a trial set up, so we can do that. So yeah, so make sure you've got licenses and a Teams account is provisioned before continuing. Okay, so we are logged into Azure with our user. First step is to go to Azure Active Directory. And we're going to do the app registration. So essentially we're going to be creating a multi-tenant app. So I will call this MDE app, and let's make it distinguishable. So we're doing this on 17 April, and it needs to be multi-tenant. And the redirected URI, you can keep it blank, but we could also use the awt.ms, which essentially links it around background to our auth token analyzer, which is always a good one as a default, because then you can see you can inspect the auth token that comes back. So rather than it throwing an error if you don't have a redirect URI, you can actually prompt it back to look at the auth token that comes back, which is pretty helpful. Okay, so register. So it's going to now register the application, and what we want to do here is take a note of the app ID. So, excuse my dog. So let's take that. Okay, app ID. And then we want to create an app secret. One year is fine, so any description is fine, add that. And then we want to take a copy of this secret value here. Okay. Next, we want to add the schema permissions, the API permissions for this app. So jump over to API permissions, and by default, the app gets user.read permissions. We want to add some more. One bit is important here. If you do a search and you don't find the Windows Defender ones, it's probably because the Defender tenant has been provisioned yet. So make sure, one, in this partner tenant that you have licenses for Defender for Endpoint and you've logged into Defender for Endpoint at least once. Otherwise, when you do this search here, you may not find the Defender APIs. So we're doing app permissions, and there now we want to find a specific one. So as you can see here, these are all the API permissions that we expose here, and there's quite a few. So you've got quite a few options if you want to customize or do something unique with your customers down the line. But for this instance, we just want to have the ability to read all of the alerts, and we're also taking the threat and vulnerability management score as well. So we want the ability to read that too. And we can click on add permissions. Okay. And that will add those permissions. And then what we now have is the ability to try and ask for those permissions in our customer tenants. So next we're going to, I suppose, walk through the customer consent experience. So this will provide the app with the permissions required to interrogate the APIs for, I suppose, those alerts and TVM score read status. So essentially we're going to, I suppose, role play as a customer and provide admin consent for the app that we've just registered. And we'll need to do this for each customer. So in this instance we have 3 customer tenants, so we need to do that for each of our 3 customers. So I'm just going to bring the notepad back up again. So essentially we've got this URL here. Just copy and paste that in, and this is available in our lab documentation. And what we need to do is replace the client ID in here. So take client ID, which was the top one, and we're going to pop it in there. Boom. Okay. So when we've got that, we then need to sign in, I suppose, with each of our customer admin credentials. It needs to be global admin as well, which is important. So I take this, copy this, and I'm going to go to a new in private session, which I've got somewhere around here. This one we'll take, I'm just going to close that one and spin up a new one. I've got 2 copies of Edge installed, so I'm able to create multiple in privates. Okay, so it's prompts. So we've got some global admin creds for our customer tenants. So I'm going to do Contoso first. And just put in the password here. Sign in, and this will prompt us. So we're an unverified publisher, so if you were an ISV and you were a verified Microsoft app publisher, then you could actually be a verified here. So it just adds that level of trust, but this is just a lab environment. So you can see here, this is going to give us these permissions, and so the customer can expand these. So we accept, and reply URLs. Okay, I thought I'd set it as a reply URL, but okay, I found yeah, the issue was what we were copying and pasting was a redirect URI was actually specified in here. So yeah, by just cutting that piece out at the end there, it does actually use the correct one that we specified in the app. So let's paste that in there, and this one we want to use another account. So let's use my Tailspin Toys admin. Paste that one in there. Paste the password. Prompt for, again, let's approve those. Okay, that takes us back here. Okay, let's do it for the okay, this one's for Northwind Traders. Okay, next. Paste. Okay, and accept. Okay, and now I suppose if we wanted to prove everything was okay, we could go to the Azure portal, just pick any of these ones. So we go to Contoso or Northwind Traders, sign in as Northwind Traders, we go to Azure Active Directory, and now if we go to Enterprise Applications, so this is essentially where the stub of that app should exist. We can look for this one here, so made it identifiable, so 17th of April. And we should see that this should have admin consent granted permissions for Windows Defender ATP. So this is just to double check that everything is in order, that this application and the I suppose the scope of the app was approved correctly. So yes, we can see here that it's all good.